If you're looking for presentations that are as boring as Orrin Hatch, keep roaring past, because I'm ignoring that. But if you're looking for words that are worth scratching words on pads, I hope you determine that I'm the person who's supporting that. I'm saying it, I've said it, I'm inflecting in terms poetic. I've edited these sentences to project a message that life is precious. And I realize that the extent of that message settling definitely depends on how it's presented. Because we're trying to connect content to the existential. So if it gets a little sentimental, I'd be nonsensical to express that that's not preferential. In fact, that's why I streaked this ink to demo these pros and show through these notes how a prezzo could go, faith and hope, and how to apply this. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Matthias.
Yeah.
All right. I am excited. Very happy that Kat and Carrie invited me. Very happy to start getting to know the Ross community. And excited to just be here tonight. And I got invited here tonight to tell my story. We've all got a story. And tonight I get to share mine. And I'm going to share it through some rhymes. You might have been able to figure that out already. So I've written songs, spoken word. I haven't done it actually in a while, so I was a little nervous tonight. But I've written those songs over the years. I was actually invited tonight because I did a TEDx a few years ago. I know Mary did too. And when I was preparing for tonight, I thought it might be kind of cool to share my story through different songs, stanzas, pieces of different songs that I've written over the years. And I wrote these songs at different stages in my journey. And for me, it's very much a mental health journey. So that's really what I want to do tonight, is share with you a little bit about myself and my story through these songs. So, life's hard. The world can be tough. We don't have to look too far to see that. We can turn on the news. We can look in our own lives. And a lot of times when we're growing up, I've got 3 kids, 2 in elementary school, one in middle school. We're trying to fit in, at least not stand out, right? And so we look to the external world, to others, to be able to anchor to figure that out, to fit in, to be normal. But as I got older, I thought, what is normal? See, I got flashbacks to when I used to eat snack packs. It was normal to ride in hatchbacks. I used to make blood packs and ride bikes and light match packs. But in this era of fast pass, it's less likely that my own kids will make tracks on bike paths than that they'll crash spats on Snapchat. And when I was little, it was normal to just say no. But now any chap can practically now cannabis candies can practically be grabbed by any chap within a stone's throw of Beyond Hello. Is it normal that media is less and less focused on news, acting more like salesmen trying to sell me their views? Is it normal that politics is like Hollywood and no better, both spouting off at the mouth like they're Conor McGregor? Or that technology facilitates hostilities without requiring action? Just keyboards and opinions are required for anonymous clashing of passions. Or why don't you grab your cell phone and cash in on some fantasy drafts or blackjack? Both were illegal until the government did the math and figured out how to extract cash. And black people used to sit on the back of the bus. Can you imagine that? And now Chicago kids are strapped and Ukrainian kids got gas masks. So tell me what's normal, because I can't grasp that. So we can't look to the outside world. It's difficult. It's tough to anchor to that. But you know what? When I was coming up, maybe like a lot of us, either explicitly or implicitly, I was trying to work towards that next thing. What's that next thing? Yes. Right? Once I graduate elementary school, I'm going to middle school. I'm going to high school. When I get to college, it's going to be different. I'm going to get a job. It's going to be different. So we go after accomplishment, right? When I get to that next thing, I'm going to find joy, right? And we get to that next thing, and what happens? It's not quite the joy that we were looking for. A little bit about my background. Straight A's in high school, class president, captain of the wrestling team, went to college on scholarship, military, #1 in flight school, 2 deployments, MBA, taught at University of Illinois, #1 MBA class, manager at State Farm, beautiful wife over here, 3 awesome kids, house. All right, let's take a look at that. Check, 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 check. If you look at that resume, man, that guy's not sad. Well, how could he ever be depressed? He's got all the stuff that we're trying to do, right? Isn't that what we're trying to accomplish in life? These things? That's where we find joy. But at the end of the day, as I got older, I didn't find joy in those things. In fact, despite those things, despite them, I was still sad, and that somehow made it harder. Because when I look on paper, there was no tragedy. There wasn't some big thing that happened. I almost would have felt better if I could have blamed it on something. But on paper, it was great. And despite that, I got more sad, it got more dark, and it was going the opposite way. And we have this idea of loneliness of maybe some elderly person sitting in their apartment or at a restaurant by themselves. Rhyming makes you thirsty. In case you didn't know. We have this idea of loneliness, and a lot of times that loneliness that we feel inside, and I'm sure we've all felt it to some degree, we can be surrounded by those we love and feel like the loneliest person in the world. I mean, it could be some of us here right now, people that we work with. I always kind of described it as sitting in the bottom of this dark well, just sitting there by myself. And there were people all around, but there was this pain. Have you ever felt a pain so heavy that your body hurt? A disabling ache so isolating that the only solution seemed to be to leave this earth. A pain that monopolizes your mind, and you cry for it to subside while trying to contemplate any way you can to escape it. But the more you try, the more you arrive at devising suicide as the only way to escape it. And that word, it doesn't sound right to say it or think it or plan it, but it sure as heck feels like the only door when it feels like every other door has vanished. And so you pretend, for the sake of your kin, that the end still holds some purpose. But it feels pointless because if life loses its worth, then your own life feels worthless. And that Zoloft cocktail they concocted and got you on, that barely contacts the surface. So you feel you got no choice left but to see what after this earth is. And you try to explain your pain. But there's no language to explain dark to the day. So that struggle stays wordless. First time that I was so sad I wanted to do something about it, I was 17 or 18 years old. I won't go into details there, but I remember thinking, I can't do this. I'm 18. I could do anything. There's a million doors in front of me. I could be a rock star. I could be president, an astronaut. I don't know what's cool, right? But as my whole life was in front of me, all the years were in front, so it's like, let's see what happens. But when we get older, year after year after year, there's more of our story written than is yet to be written. And those doors that maybe were 100,000 doors when I was 18 years old, and all these possibilities, they shrunk down to 1,000, then 100, then 10. And now I'm looking, and there's like 3 doors. It's like, oh. So even though that pain didn't go away, that thing that kind of saved me when I was younger, it wasn't really there anymore. And I felt I could see the end of my life, and I figured, what's the point? I know what this looks like at the end. It almost felt like an obligation. So You keep struggling, and it's tough to figure it out. You're trying to figure it out yourself, let alone trying to communicate to people who love you. I don't know what's wrong. Should I even say anything? How do I even communicate that? I start taking some medicine. I start going to therapy. Things aren't great, and you kind of hope it will resolve itself, but it ain't going to resolve itself. And most people I knew and loved and worked with and cared about and friends, they didn't know that struggle can stay silent. Finally, I said, you know what? I'm just gonna take care of this. Like I see the end. I know what it looks like. We're just gonna call it a wrap. I woke up. It was Valentine's Day. Wrote some Valentine's cards to my kids, each one of them. Went to work, left at noon, took some cash out, turned off my phone. Was gonna drink till I had the courage to do it, because it's scary. And I didn't get there. It's funny, I think now, what takes courage is battling on. It's funny, I was trying to find some courage to be able to do something that, I couldn't do. And after years of struggling, I gave up. I gave in. There was nothing else to do. I came home that night. We talked, and my wife said, I think you need to go somewhere. And finally, I'm like, you know what? Whatever. I didn't think it was going to work, but because what has worked up to that point, everyone's got a solution. But fine, what else am I going to do? I can't even do this one thing right. That's how worthless I am. That's how I can't even do this. See, I only felt strong enough to sit with my fifth of vodka and knock it back, while getting blasted on a 12-pack of Killians, while millions of villains plundered and pillaged, vowed and vied to destroy the villages that resided inside my mind. So with no strength to change my brain, those hours faded into days, and those days hazed into years. And I sat there just numbing that dumb gray mass that sat between my ears. I was messed up, and I was fed up with my endless fetish for Svedka, depression, cigarettes, and beer. I'd sentenced myself, and I sensed the end was near. But before that garage door closed, one last hope. So here we go. Cheers. So I went down to the ranch in Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee. I was there for 30 days, inpatient facility. And I took away three big things from that place. Nothing alone changed me. That alone didn't change me, but it was a pivot point. I can tell you that. Why? There were three things. One, I was in a community. I was in a community, in a brotherhood. They separate you by gender. You live in a house. I was in a house with other folks like me. We call ourselves the Looney House. So a big part of the therapy was kind of talking to each other, cooking for ourselves, getting to know each other. It was really horrible. Can you imagine being a bald man and they only let you check out your razor blade 30 minutes a day? Do you know, I got a job. I need my razor blade. They didn't give me my razor one morning. So what are you going to do with this razor anyways? They didn't listen to me. Community, that was huge. Two, you go there, there's a lot of burdens in life. We all got roles, fathers, mothers, parents, jobs. When I went there was no roles anymore. They didn't know me as this manager, as this, person in this group. There was no expectations on me. It was just Matthias. They didn't know me, and I could take the burden of the obligation off my shoulders, even just for a few weeks. And the third thing I took was there, and it carried forward. My story was out. It's hard to hide going away for 30 days. Like, oh, where were you? Oh, I was in Hawaii. Can I see some pictures? Oh, it's okay. No, we'll catch up later. You know what? And there was kind of a stigma to that. I was never really ashamed of it, but how do you bring it up? Now it's kind of natural to bring up. And you know what? That's therapeutic too. clearly I'm very open about this topic. And I have been ever since then. And I love being open about it. I think it's great to talk about. And that was a key point for me, being able to openly talk about it. That was a pivot point. I wasn't fixed when I left, but it was the beginning. See, I had rejected myself and expected less and less of my messed up self. But my expectations were premeditated resentment. And my serenity is directly tied to my acceptance. I went there looking for someone who could help and didn't realize that that strength was already inside myself. Each step I took, I was not alone, and I began to accept that which I could not control. Where I once looked in a mirror and saw a barren face, I once was lost but now felt found, amazing grace. See, I bought that plot and I plowed that ground and I laid a sound foundation down. But there was still a house to be built when I got out. It was there for the taking. The greater the doubt, the greater the awakening. It began to shift from head to heart, and I didn't know where my story was going to end. But I finally had a sense of where it would start. I got out of the ranch. It was hard. It was no magic fix, right? There isn't one. All right, this is where the hard work really started. I went to, more therapy. I think I know half the therapists in town, maybe. Medicine, right? You're working, right? Marriage counseling. I signed up for DBT, dialectical behavioral theory classes at ISU. Just trying to do what I can to make my recovery stick. So when Lisa, my wife, said, hey, there's this class at church called Alpha. Do you want to go to it? I was like, let me think about it. And then a few days later, I was like, listen, all right, I'm almost 40 or whatever I was at the time. I don't know, maybe I was 40. I know I look so young. But I was like, listen, I'm trying to work on things, right? I'm trying to work on, and it's just not a priority right now. I've looked into the God thing, right? I just find it hard to believe. I find it hard to believe. How he rose from the dead, really? There's prophets, people who could tell the future, right? Miracles. Oh, I have a purpose. I was designed. I wanted to believe, right? I was jealous of Lisa and other folks. I wanted something more in life. I was missing it. But it wasn't connecting for me. Logically, I couldn't get my mind around it. So I said nicely, no, thank you. And she said, okay, well, I want to go, and I want someone to go with me so I don't go by myself. And I said, listen, if that's the way you tee it up, I don't want to go for me, but if you need someone to go, I'm your husband, I'm going to go with you. And I feel like when I took one step towards her, God took 3 steps towards me. I went to this class. It was super chill and cool. I had a really awesome table facilitator who's here tonight as well. And again, it wasn't the thing by itself, but it was another domino. It was another domino. And you know what happened? Someone saw that class on my work calendar. And then that person asked me about it. And I was like, I don't know, Lisa wanted me to go. I'm checking it out because. And we talked. And you know what? Later that Christmas, she bought me this book called Case for Christ. And then I wasn't necessarily going to read it. People give you books. You're like, oh, thanks, I'll definitely read it. And then Netflix. And then this other guy came in my office while I was sitting there, and he's here too. And he's like, hey, that's a good book. You should read it. And I was like, all right, I kind of like him. He's a good guy. Maybe I'll check it out. That book changed my life. For me, it changed my life. Why? I needed logic. I didn't get it. I wanted to get it. Academically, I couldn't wrap my head around it. That book dove right in, and it took the illogical and made it logical. And once once that took a hold, it wasn't academic for me anymore. It was academic for a few days. It talked about moving from head to heart. It was now an experience. It was a relationship. And everything changed at that point. His name was patiently waiting on me to stake my claim to a new day, make a brave change. He had me lifted and spinning in faith. I felt like a well-played Beyblade. He had made a blatant statement, saved me and brought me to this place with just enough faith each day to make it. And face it, I needed grace because mistakes, I made them. And I can't repay him. But he found me, reached me, grabbed me up from the basement, brought me to life claymation. He said, I'm giving you hope, son. Now what's it placed in? I was persistently living like life didn't exist. But when I'd sit with it and think, if he really did all this, I can't quit. Life is infinite. Tomorrow always exists. So I better figure out quick what tomorrow I'm going to do with it. See, I was relying on vices in all the places where now Christ lives. And I learned a lesson quite priceless. Those who once saw the darkest can see the brightest. What did that do for me? That changed my life. 3 things that God gave me that changed my life. 1, grace. I didn't earn any forgiveness. All that guilt and shame that just beats you down every single day. I'm worthless. I'm worthless. I'm worthless. I stink. I've now confirmed it by doing this thing and not doing the things I should. Grace. I didn't earn it. He gave it to me. He said, I love you. That's the second thing, unconditional love. Unconditional love, knowing that no matter how much I screwed up, and I still screw up all the time, I'm still loved as a result. For what? And those 2 things right off the bat, I don't deserve grace. I don't deserve unconditional love. So I'll tell you what, I got no right to withhold that from anybody else. If God is good enough to give it to me, who am I not to give it to others? And so I share that grace freely. I try to share that unconditional love. That's freeing unto itself. The third thing is purpose. Having a purpose to live. I didn't think I was created for anything. I didn't think I was created for a reason. I wanted to believe it, but I couldn't feel it in my heart. You can't make your heart feel something that's not there. But now I felt, you know what? If he exists, he knows that. He knows every, I'll say hair on my head, but I'll say hair on my beard. He can count them all. Right? And in lieu of the Creator telling us why they created something, right? If we look at this table, I don't know who made this table, but I can look at the attributes of it and say, you know what? It's got 4 legs. It's got a flat top. It's got some glass on there. Kind of got some designs. You can put things on it. I can look at the attributes of something and start to infer maybe why the Creator created that. So now if I take that and I apply that to me, why was I created? Let me look at the attributes. What are my strengths, weaknesses? Right? What was I designed for? If I really was designed, what was that designed for? And then my goal became to understand what that was. A few months later, I left my job. I wouldn't recommend that to everybody. But he spoke to me and he led me down a new path. And it was right for me. That idea embedded in my heart made all the difference in the world. In my darkest days, I saw the end and I wanted to be done. I saw no more doors and I wanted to fast forward. But in a world where he exists, where miracles exist, doors are infinite and the story's always being written. And as long as I'm breathing, I got a reason. The only time I want to see that darkness, and I know I can go back anytime to a lot of those things like that if I want. And I don't want to because I've seen it. Like we all seen some darkness. The only reason I want to go back there now is to reach back into that darkness and pull others out through it. Because I've seen it and I felt it, and there's a time when I thought I'd never get to the other side. And when you come out the other side, all you want to do is yell out and celebrate and tell everyone else who's not there yet what's possible. I was put here tonight. My story brought me here. I didn't choose to be here. My story brought me here. Your story brought you here. I don't know why you're here. Some of you are just supporting me. Some of you are here for various reasons. I don't know the story, but I know we all got one. And I know I didn't choose to be here because I know Kat invited me because she saw my TEDx talk. And I know I did that TEDx talk because someone else saw some other talk I did that I didn't really mean to do, but I just did it. And I just did that because I wrote this other thing. The journey that got me here started so many years ago, I can't even remember. It's not an accident. And that's awesome. That's so cool. So I cling to this dream. I cling to this dream that, man, I just can't release. That if I could manage to set free in some manner of speech, this part of me that always seems just a bit out of reach, that maybe I could help bring meaning to a world that often feels so make-believe. And that dream, you see, that's not uniquely in me. Because if I inspire him, and then he inspires she, now one dreamer becomes two, and now two becomes three. Now multiplicity, it's not just me, it's we're a team. And now a team of dreamers and believers, we can achieve unbelievable feats. So don't battle alone. You don't have to keep suffering. Your sustenance in this struggle can be faith, hope, and love. Start as young as a mustard seed. Watch it grow up humongously, then discover recovery. Trust me, you are loved. It must be because we've all got a story that's being written like verses. This life, you deserve it despite its curves, twists, and turns. Oh, I'm certain you're worth it because you were made and you are known. And though it's a journey of courage, as long as there's breath in our lungs, we've got hope. We've got purpose. McLean County, Ross, happy holidays!